Alright, Omar, we're going to talk about solving equations today. And there's a couple of main things that we need to know about solving equations. So a couple of key vocabulary terms are going to be order of operations and variables. Order of operations is pretty much a fancy way of saying addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I'm going to put over here a key. This is going to help us down the road. Variables, x, y, can also be known as placeholders. Another reason we say placeholders is because we just don't know what it is yet. We know something goes there, we just don't know what number or fraction or decimal is going to go there. So placeholder, variables, you can say it the same thing. Or you can use the same, you can use both words the same way. Sorry, I had a yawn. So, when solving equations, usually we have one variable. For example, -50 equals 5c. Now this c is our placeholder in this equation. So, we could also say -50 equals 5x. Both mean the same thing. These letters are just placeholders for us. We treat them all the same. Any letter through the alphabet can be a placeholder, A, B, C, or D. Now sometimes, for example, in word problems, we will use a particular letter because it corresponds with a word problem. For example, how many cars can the garage hold? For example, C, being our car, we would use the C variable in this problem. So, to solve this, we need to look at our order of operations. So, first we need to know what are we trying to get rid of or what are we trying to move. Our goal is to get the variable, let me put that down. Our goal is to get the variable by itself. What I mean by this is it needs to be, for example, if the variable is x has no numbers next to it, has no negative signs, or is not part of a fraction. We want the variable to be all by itself, and we want it to equal a number. I just made up the number 12. So the variable by itself equals a number. So we're going to look at our first problem here. -50 equals 5c. So we need to get the variable by itself. So we need to move this c variable, or we need to get it by itself. Right now, this 5 is attached to the c. Now the reason why it is attached is because there is no addition or subtraction sign next to it. So, for example, it could be 5 plus c, 5 minus c. Because there is no addition and there is no subtraction sign between the number and the variable, or placeholder, depending on how you want to say it, it is attached. What that means is that it's really -50 equals 5 times c. Whenever we move a number or a variable over a equal sign, we have to do the opposite operation. So we're going to go back to our key. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide this 5 to both sides. Divide by 5, divide by 5. What we do to one side, we do to the other. That's why we divided both sides by 5. These 5 cancel out, so we're left with -50 divided by 5 equals c. Now, if we don't know this answer, we can put it into a calculator. If we know it, we can just do the math in our head, which would be -10 equals c. We have our variable by itself, and we have our number by itself as well. There's no extra variables. This is our answer. Let's try another one. 8 equals 5 plus f. So our goal is we want to get the variable by itself. Our variable is f. Now if we look at the differences between both of these problems, one of them, the number was attached to the variable, the other, the number is not. This 5 is adding to f. So we are going to do the opposite of addition. The opposite of addition is subtraction. So this positive 5 becomes a negative 5. Or we can say we're subtracting it from both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0, so that cancels out. So we are left with an f now equals 8 minus 5. If we know it in our head, we can do it, or we can use a calculator. So f equals 3. That is our answer. Here's what I would like you to do. I would like you to stop this video and practice this problem. I want you to try it out. Go. Alright, so you tried the problem. Let's walk through and see if you got it right. This variable, we want to get it by itself. We want it to look like this. We want no extra numbers, no subtraction signs. We want the variable to be by its own. So that means we need to move this negative 3. So, minus 3, we're going to do the opposite. Add 3. Sorry, I had another yawn. So, we can do this math in our head, or we can put it in a calculator. N equals 10 plus 3. These are known as one-step equations. The reason why they are one step is because we're only having to change one order of operations. For example, all we had to do was divide to get this c by itself. We only had to subtract by 5 to get this f by itself. For this n, all we had to do was add by 3 to get it by itself. And we're going to do one more practice problem before we move on to two-step equations. And I'm actually going to put up here one step. So, x divided by 7 equals negative 10. So our goal is we want to get this variable by itself, which means we need to move this 7. So this is a little bit of a tricky problem because we don't clearly see which operation it is. But think of it this way. Oh man. Give me a moment. So, where we left off. We want to think of this x over 7 just like we would 1/2, or 1 divided by 2. So when we have an x on top of a number, we know that it's division. So if we look at our orders of operation, the opposite of division is multiplication. So to get rid of this 7, we're going to times. What we do to one side, we do to the other. These two cancel out. So we now have x equals negative 10 times 7. X equals negative 70. That is our answer for this problem. I'm going to give you a couple more problems for you to practice, and then we're going to walk through it. So, here's what the practice problems will be for you. I would like you to stop the video, and then we will go over it together. Your first practice problem will be negative 4y equals 36. Your second practice problem will be 5z equals 50. And your third problem will be 11 equals a plus 2. So, you've had time to work on your practice problems. Let's go ahead and work through it. So, our goal is to get the variable by itself. Our second goal is to add like terms. And by then, we will have completed the problem. So, let's look at our equation. Negative 4y equals 36. So what we need to do is get this variable by itself, which means we need to move the negative 4. If you remember from last time, if there is no operation, specifically addition or subtraction, between the variable and the number, that means it is multiplication. So this negative 4y is really the same thing as saying negative 4 times y. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by negative 4 to both sides. Y equals 36 divided by negative 4. Y equals, I'm going to double check my answer because I don't remember, and this is something that you can do. So I pulled out my calculator. 36 divided by 4. But it's a negative number. So we have negative 9 is our answer. And this is how your steps should look exactly. This is for example number 1. We are now going to look at example number 2. 5z equals 50. So we don't see an addition or subtraction sign here, which means these are attached, which means it's multiplication, which means if we need to move this 5 to the right side, we're doing division. So we're dividing by 5, dividing by 5. Z equals 50 divided by 5. And if we put it into a calculator, that equals 10. And we always box our answer. Your last practice problem should be 11 equals a plus 2. So a is our variable and a is by itself, but now we have an addition sign, which means these are not attached. So we need to move this positive 2 to this side. The opposite of addition is subtraction, so we're now going to subtract 2. Subtract 2. 11 minus 2 equals a. 11 minus 2 is 9, which equals our answer A. This is our one-step equations. Our goals are to look for variables and get them by themselves. Our second step is to add / combine like terms. This is what you should copy down in your journal that I'm going to give you. Okay? So, you have your key. You have the title of what subject it is. Key piece of information followed by notes. You'll have some practice problems at the bottom where we will go over practice problems here. This concludes your lesson on one-step equations. Alright, we are now moving on to two-step equations. The only difference between one step and two step is, guess what? We're adding one additional step. We will still have the same key as before, and we will still have the same goals. We're going to get variables by itself, and we're going to combine like terms. So, for an example problem, we have 9 plus y over 22 equals 10. Our variable for today is y, and this is what we want to get alone, which means we have to move the 9 and the 22. If we remember from our previous lesson, when we have a variable on top of a number, it's the same thing as division. So, the opposite of division is multiplication. So the way we're going to get rid of that 22 is we're going to, yep, that's correct, multiply. These two cancel out, so we are left with 9 plus y equals 10 times 22. 10 times 22 is 220. 9 plus y. Now, we still don't have this y by itself. So, we need to look at this 9. We have a positive 9. So the opposite of positive 9 is negative 9. Negative 9, negative 9. Y equals 220 minus 9. Y equals 211. That is our completed example problem. Let's do another one. We will have x minus 28 equals 8 equals negative 20. All right. So our variable is x, which means we need to move the negative 28 and the 8. We always want to start with this bottom number first. So we need to move this 8 to the right side. How are we going to do that? Just how we did on the previous problem. If we remember, when a variable is on top of a number, it's the same thing as division. So opposite of division is multiplication. So we are going to times by 8. Times by 8 times by 8. These 8's cancel out. So we are left with 8 minus 28 equals negative 20 times 8. Which is the same thing as a negative 160. X minus 28. Now, our variable is still not by itself. So, what we need to do is move this 28 to the right side. We have a negative 28. So the opposite of negative 28 is positive 28. So we're going to add 28 to both sides. X equals negative 160 plus 28. Which leaves us with a total of negative 132. Now, I'm going to give you a practice problem, and I want you to stop the video and attempt to do it by yourself first. Your problem will be f plus 25 over negative 10 equals 8. I want you to stop the video and attempt to do this problem. Alright, so let's see if you got the answer right. We have our variable f, and we need to get it by itself. So, first thing we need to look at is what number do we need to move? We need to move the bottom number first. If we remember from before, if a variable is on top of a number, it's the same thing as division. So to move this negative 10, we need to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So we're going to times by negative 10 to both sides. This will cancel out. We have f plus 25 equals 8 times negative 10. 8 times negative 10 is negative 80 equals f plus 25. We have an addition sign here. The opposite of addition is subtraction. So to move this 25, we're going to have a negative 25 equals negative 80. Apologies, let me start over. So we're going to subtract 25 from both sides. So f equals negative 80 minus 25. Which, if we want to do the change it opposite method, would be negative 80 plus negative 25, which is negative 105. So f should be negative 105. This is how you solve two-step equations.